I used to live a normal life, in a normal apartment, with a normal job. But that all changed about a year ago when my landlord decided to sell the building and gave everyone 30 days to move out. Rents had skyrocketed in the area, and there was no way I could afford anything comparable on my modest salary. That's how I ended up moving into the old abandoned hotel on the edge of town. I knew it wasn't exactly legal, but the building had been vacant for years. It still had electricity and running water since the bills were automatically paid by some holding company. As long as I kept a low profile, I figured I could get away with squatting there indefinitely. The hotel was built in the 1920s and had been magnificent in its day. Now it was faded and crumbling, with peeling wallpaper and layers of dust over everything. Still, it met my basic needs. I even chose one of the nicer rooms on the third floor to live in. It had a large bay window that let in plenty of sunshine, a nice view of the wooded area behind the hotel, and a working bathroom. At first, I was charmed by the quirkiness of living in an old abandoned building. It felt like having my own little secret hideaway. But that excitement soon turned to unease. Little things would be out of place from how I'd left them. Chairs slightly pulled away from the table. The curtains opened wider. My toothbrush moved an inch to the left. I tried to shrug it off. The building was old. Maybe I was just forgetting little details. Still, I started locking my door at all times, even when I was inside. I chalked the feelings of being watched up to being alone in a big, empty place. A week after moving in, I heard a loud, metallic clang that made me jump. It seemed to come from the walls. I wrote it off as pipes settling or critters scurrying around. But the next morning, I made a curious discovery. When I opened the small dumbwater door, there was a gift waiting inside. It was an antique music box, the kind with a tiny ballerina that spins as it plays. A tarnished wind-up key stuck out of the side. Why would someone leave this for me? I hadn't told a soul where I was living. Against my better judgment, I wound the little key a few turns. A twinkling melody filled the room as the dancer slowly pirouetted. It was Swan Lake. Something about the tune made me feel simultaneously sad and sweetly nostalgic. I let it play 3 times through before packing the music box away in a drawer. A few days later, another gift appeared in the dumbwaiter. This time, it was an ornate hand mirror, its silver back etched with roses. When I looked into it, the person staring back at me seemed different than I remembered. Sadder, darker, more faded. I shoved the mirror to the bottom of a closet and tried to put it out of my mind. The gifts kept coming, every couple of days. A crystal decanter, a silver hairbrush, a dried rose under a glass dome, a tiny dancing ballerina doll. I didn't know what they meant or who was leaving them. I told myself to throw them out, but I could never bring myself to do it. I started poking around the hotel more, searching for clues about my mysterious benefactor. Most of the rooms were empty, except for old furniture, dusty artwork, and some tattered luggage that had been abandoned long ago. One day I came across a storage room that was packed with artifacts from the hotel's glory days. Faded posters and programs from the theater advertised jazz singers, magicians, and comedians who once graced the stage. Crisp linens and crystal stemware remained packed in crates, waiting for events that would never happen. I was struck by how intact much of it was. It seemed like staff must have boxed everything up in an orderly fashion before the hotel closed. Like they had just stepped out and would be back momentarily to resume the dances, dinner parties, and celebrations that now only echoed in these hollow halls. The storage room held no clues about the gifts, but it did make me curious about the hotel's history. Next time I was in town, I stopped by the library and found some old newspaper clippings and a commemorative book from the grand opening in 1926. Back then, it had been the gem of the town. No expense was spared on the opulent decor, state-of-the-art amenities, and luxurious accommodations. The lobby featured a grand piano and sweeping staircase. There was an elegant ballroom, restaurant, lounge, and theater, along with grounds sprawling over 100 acres. For 4 decades, it was the preferred lodging for celebrities, socialites, and dignitaries visiting the area. There were galas, weddings, conventions, concerts, and private events almost weekly. But its glory eventually faded, eclipsed by modern resorts outside town. It lingered on for a few years before finally shutting down sometime in the late 1960s. One newspaper article mentioned a terrible fire that killed over 100 people back in 1956. It had been a lavish New Year's Eve party. The blaze started as some drunken revelers knocked over an oil lamp in the lobby. Flames spread rapidly, fed by the lush carpets and drapes. Many guests were trapped upstairs, unable to reach the flaming grand staircase or jammed fire exits. Some partygoers refused to leave, insisting the fire was extinguished or just an ill-timed prank. They remained in the grand ballroom as it became an inferno, determined to continue the festivities until the very end. Shaken, I pushed those grim thoughts aside. But despite my research, the hotel's heyday felt tantalizingly out of reach. Who were all those glamorous people who once danced, dined, and strolled the grounds? What had they looked like, pondered, dreamed about? What stories resided in these walls if only they could talk? One night, I awoke to off-key piano music coming from somewhere inside the hotel. Part of me knew I should stay hidden, but I slipped out to the grand staircase to investigate. On the landing, I saw the ghostly outline of a woman in an embroidered gown playing the lobby piano. Her blonde curls bobbed as her translucent fingers danced across the keys. I gasped and stumbled backward. The specter turned toward me with a mournful, faraway look in her hollow eyes. But when I blinked, she was gone. After that, I started seeing fleeting glimpses of ghosts around the hotel. Well-dressed couples gliding across the ballroom floor. A man in a tuxedo staring out a fourth-floor window. A sobbing child curled up in the hallway hugging her knees. Shadowy staff passing in and out of empty rooms. I knew then the hotel's history. These were the doomed souls who perished in the terrible fire of 1956. Over 100 partygoers, trapped by the surging blaze that ravaged the building in minutes. Apparently some refused to leave even in death. Their restless spirits remained, endlessly reliving that night. It dawned on me then. The gifts, the music, the glimpses. They were trying to communicate. The ghosts knew I was here. They wanted me to help them or join them or who knows what. I wanted to flee and never look back. But the hotel had become my home. Where would I go? The next morning I heard the now familiar clang of the dumbwaiter arriving. I steeled myself as I pulled open the door, unsure what I would find this time. Inside lay a charred and melted room key, number 315 engraved on one side. The implication hit me like a gut punch. This wasn't a gift, it was a warning. Room 315, that was my room. I backed away from the dumbwaiter, grabbed my bug-out bag and rushed downstairs. Smoke was already starting to coil down the hallway as I fled for the front entrance. The air shimmered with heat. Angry flames licked up the walls, swallowing everything in their path. I burst out of the burning hotel just as an upstairs window exploded from the intensity of the fire. The ghosts had sent me one final message. It was time for me to leave, or end up like them. Housekeeping would find nothing left in those ruins but a few mysteriously delivered trinkets in the ashes. I headed straight to the bus station without looking back. The hotel was their domain now. Their party would go on eternally, even if only ghosts remained on the guest list. I was still alive and aimed to stay that way. Sometimes I wonder if I should have tried to free those souls. Could I have laid their anguish to rest? It's far too late now. Wherever I lay my head these days, it's with doors locked and an escape plan ready. You never know who or what might call unexpectedly. All I know is I won't ignore the signs next time. Not when my very life could depend on it. That bus ride was the start of a long and often lonely journey for me. I drifted from city to city, taking odd jobs and sleeping wherever I could find a free corner. Shelters,